Good day, friends. We're going to continue now with Letters on Occult Meditation on a very important and much blinded chapter. Of course, I know music a lot better than I know the visual arts, so I'll do my best with this as I can. So this is letter number 7. I think there are 9 letters altogether, something like that. We are more than halfway through the book at this point. It is a lengthy chapter, and in a way it has to do with what we call spiritual numerals, which do consist of the colors and the sounds and maybe some of the geometrical symbols. Now, the subject has to be blinded. Too much of revelation would betray the secrets, which is not allowed. So we'll just do our best. And, I may later consult some of my friends. Victoria Stone has made quite a study of the color aspect. So I'll do the best I can, and we'll see if it conveys anything of value to you and also to me as I go along, because I'm learning so much as I go. We have, to look forward to the new esoteric schools when all of these things will be dealt with in depth. So here we are on page 203, the use of color and sound. And 4 points here: enumeration of the colors and some comments, colors and the law of correspondences, effects of colors. Color healing is in vogue in certain methods of vibratory healing, and application of colors and their future use. These will be the 4 subjects, and we do have to admit, that Matthew organizes these things brilliantly and clearly. So August 27th, 1920, here we are in October 1920, can't quite keep the century exact. There is no question that those who break the law perish by the law, whilst those who keep it live by it. Old teacher and friend Andrew used to say, no one breaks the law breaks them. And it's become increasingly clear that it is so. The true study of occultism is the study of the why and how of phenomena. It is the finding out of the method whereby results are achieved, and it involves a close analysis of events and circumstances in order to discover the governing laws. Well, I don't think anyone can find something bad about that. I think it's just something that humanity has to engage in. The hidden causes of things, why phenomena appear as they do, and how the process brings forward their appearance, methods, results achieved from the methods. And, it's a very mental prospect. The occult mind is ruled by Uranus, a first ray, third ray, fifth ray, seventh ray planet with some connection, strange connection, to the second ray and to Sirius and to Pisces. I've been led to make these preliminary remarks today because I saw with clarity the questions that are controlling your mind. So we can see what an advantage it would be for a teacher to see such things. These questions are of great value if you continue to apply yourself to the search for the right answer. Certain definite laws govern the life of the disciple. Certain definite laws govern the life of the disciple. The disciple is willing to follow them. The aspirant, moved by surges of aspiration, follows them fitfully now and then. They are the same laws that control all life. The difference consists in the partial realization on the part of the disciple of the purpose of these laws, really the will of a great entity in whom we live and move and have our being. The firm, established, unchangeable will of that being results in the laws. So the difference consists in the partial realization on the part of the disciple of the purpose of these laws, their raison d'etre, their reason for being, and their conscious, judicious application to the circumstances in daily living. All right, well, we cannot be a disciple, a true disciple, unless we pay attention to the laws, and there are so many of them. One of our colleagues is making maybe by the time you read this, it will already be completed, but a thorough exploration of all the laws mentioned by the Tibetan: cosmic, systemic, planetary, laws of nature, and so forth. And there are just many. By conformance to the law is the personal life transmuted. And then, an ellipse where he may give some kind of example that he doesn't want to have published. By conformance to the law is the personal life transmuted. Take, for instance, the law of substance. This law puts the disciple in the position of wisely utilizing the universal storehouse. The secret of supply, when we study the different schools on the planets, is ruled by Jupiter, associated with abundance. So this storehouse of that which is needed is found in relation to Jupiter. Maybe I can find that possibly that what it may be called. And yeah, here it is. And it is called the School of Beneficent Magicians. Seventh ray is also implied. This planet is sometimes called, in the parlance of the schools, the College of Quadruple Force Units, for its members wield 4 kinds of force. It even looks like a 4, doesn't it? The symbol of Jupiter. In constructive, yes, and magical work. Another name given to its halls, I suppose vibratory domains, is the Palace of Opulence, for its graduates work with the law of supply and are frequently called the sowers. So there we have it, the law of supply. And we, when we're missing something, the bounty of Jupiter can be relied upon to provide it under the law and when the time is right. Oh, and here, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this or not, but I would like to be able to, and maybe I cannot, maybe I cannot. Yeah, I cannot change the color of, when working here, the color of the print. I would like to be able to, but it doesn't look possible. All right, well, at least there you can see it. Okay. So, going back to our original, let's see, how do we do that? I guess this way. No? There we go. Okay. So in any case, by conformance to the law is the personal life transmuted. And we're talking about the storehouse here. So I think, this will be sufficient. The violet color, I think, is found in relation to Jupiter. Bluish violet, I think, is found. Okay. Now, moving on. It is the manipulation of matter and its adaptation to the interacting forces of supply and demand. Again, the ellipse. Blind faith is right for the mystic. It is one of the means whereby the divine storehouse is entered. But to understand the method whereby that storehouse is kept replenished and to comprehend the means whereby the bounteous supply of the All-Father is brought in contact with the children's need is better still. So I think I'll deal with it this way. So blind faith is, well, something. It's helpful. It's helpful. And put it there. And to comprehend the means whereby the bounteous supply of the All-Father is brought in contact with the children's need, this is better still. So that's the path of occultism, and through the process of invocation comes the evocation of the supply, which is replenishment. It can be money, it can be energy, is the need, love, and magnetic power. Those are the three factors that attract the necessary bounty, the necessary supply. One of those maxims I can here give anent supply and demand. It is only as a skillful use is made of the supply for the needs of the worker and the work, and education that supply continues to pour in. The secret is use, demand, take. And with this, those who work in the field of finance for esoteric replenishment, for the replenishment of what is needed about the expression of the divine plan, realize the sequence. Use, demand, take. And along with that, I feel obliged, need, love, and magnetic power attract supply. Only as the door is unlocked by the law of demand is another and higher door unlocked, permitting supply. So we have to have a response to the will to good. And on the basis of the will to good, make our demand. The law of gravitation holds the secret, and we have to, think the attraction between two material bodies, but also attraction of types of energies to each other. Perhaps we can also take the adage, nature abhors a vacuum, and relate it to the funnel and to the law of gravitation. Perhaps the adage, nature abhors a vacuum, and relate it to the creation of a funnel and to the law of gravitation. Which is an aspect, I think, as an aspect of the law of attraction. Well, here's where metaphysics and physics meet. There's much to think out about this. I was not very good in physics, but okay. Metaphysics is another matter, but perhaps to understand the metaphysics, some real grounding in physics is helpful. There will be, certain things come to me. This attraction will eventually reduce all apparent extension perceived extension to to a true point, which is an ultimate infinitesimal. In other words, total into the tiniest possible unit. What should we call it? Universal infinitesimal ultimate ever lessening is the end of the gravitational fractive process. And then finally its disappearance. So this is the, production of the true point, the universal infinitesimal, or, maybe there's also, I think so, a super universal infinitesimal. But I'm kind of branching out here into philosophy and a rather recondite aspect of philosophy. But when putting together this whole idea of the attraction of energies to each other, because everything really is energy, even that which seems solid. So we have matter force, matter energy, and the attraction of these units of matter force or matter energy to each other finally is in the disappearance of any universe. And finally, even in the disappearance of articulated absolute infinity into absoluteness. Well, we are, in a way, extended as far as our perception goes. I guess Kant would say it's a category of perception, or a category. Time and space are categories of mind, really. They are categories of perception, and the gravitational flow brings all things together into the tiniest possible yet dynamic unit, tiniest possible universal unit, which is dynamic. The tiniest possible unit in universe, which is not static, but a relative ever compared to all apparently definite quantities. Well, that's a little bit of a sidetrack, but we have several ideas that seem to come together. The creation of the funnel and the law of gravitation and the ultimate universal compression. And that's what we are speaking of here. All of this is about the ultimate universal compression of all universal logoic, self-perceptions in any universe. Well, maybe it would have been better to just stick to the point, but sometimes you said, think it out. Well, I guess you'll come up with something different when you think it out. But for the moment, this is what I get when I try to think it out. He, with kind of a preamble there, he said he was going to speak about color, but Now he does. And what was he really trying to get at here? The law of supply, the law which accesses supply, the sequences we must use. Having love, having magnetic power, we then use what we have, we then demand for replenishment, and we take and use again. If we could only get these sequences into our behavior, we would do much better as practical disciples. I feel myself talking to the image in the mirror, because I need to do it, and I know probably there are many of us who need to do it too. Some remarks on color. Okay, he went on to a digression. Now we must go to work. Maybe that's the thing one says after one takes a tangent. I can't blame Master Decay for the tangents I seem to love to take, but he has a few too, but they apply to the best teaching of his students. Now we must go to work. The subject for our consideration this evening is of profound and complicated interest. And this seventh letter of mine has to do with color and sound in meditation. Profound, it's not an easy subject. I mean, we might say that speaking the language of music, the language of harmony, that, it's easy. Things they sound good to the ear, they don't. But there's a whole mathematical structure underlying what is aesthetically appealing, which brings us release, and what is jarring to our sensibilities and contributes to a kind of discordance and confinement. There is a liberated, there are chords of liberation, and I might say there are chords of confinement. This is how I see it. Chords of liberation and chords of confinement. The first is harmonious, and the second discordant. Well, maybe that there's no H there. Okay, we have, as you know, dealt a good deal with the subject of sound in our earlier letters, both in studying the use of the sacred word. Now, this is a book one wants to read more than once, and sections more than once, and in the study of forms and mantrams. And we can say, effective form to achieve certain results. Hence, the forms are withheld. Until, the time is right and we can be trusted. So we've dealt with forms and mantrams. It is the truism to say that sound is color and color is sound, yet so it is. And the topic I really seek to bring to your attention is not so much sound as sound, but the color effects of sound. You know, we have these, I'm not sure I can spell it, synesthesiasts, people who, like the Devas, hear color and see sound. They are synesthesiasts, and we hear that there are certain composers that have, you know, been able to do that. Maybe think a Russian composer, Scriabin, was able to do that. And always really fine composers have a certain sense of the color that accompanies the notes they use. For instance, it's pretty well agreed upon that the note C, whatever its true vibrational frequency is a red note. And maybe we'll feel that G, feel the blueness of G. And it's occultly true that if the true F or Phi, you will find the green. You know, I think there are fine composers who detect these relationships. One can only speculate about what went on in the mind of Bach, a great genius, a mathematical mind. My music theory teacher, I think, told a story that Bach could be presented with a theme for a canon, which is a, you know, a special form of musical repetition, and he could tell 6 or 7 steps ahead whether it would actually work out at the 6th or 7th variation. I don't think I'm using quite the right words there, but he had tremendous musical foresight of a mathematical kind. Maybe he is, in modern times, the greatest composer who has ever lived. And his genius was not only his sensitivity, but his mathematics. You should see his horoscope. It's astonishing. The mediumship, which became possible to him through the elevation of a number of planets of beauty and receptivity, namely Mercury, Venus, Moon, and Neptune, all in Pisces at the top of the chart. And I'll talk about musical perception in a super mediumistic way, and yet he could work it all out mathematically. We have no conception. So many of us, I know I don't, but at the same time, the beauty of what he produced does arrest you. So we've studied a lot here in this book about sound in meditation, and it is a synesthesic truism to say that color is sound and sound is color. We know the story that the Devas see sound and hear color. And I think with the 4th ray coming in from its monadic aspect, you know, interesting that maybe 4th ray monads will be among us in greater quantity in the coming cycle, we're going to learn something about that type of perception. And maybe it will help us communicate with the devas, and maybe they will teach us something about that so that we can begin to have the kind of perception that they have. So what he's really trying to do, he tells us here, is not so much to study sound as sound, but the color effects of sound. Now, you know, this is a very elusive, not elusive, but elusive subject. And the correspondences are not yet fully in place. There's just information withheld in terms of frequency and the true shade of color and knowledge about complementary and matching colors in relation to harmonious and dissonant sounds. A color clash might be called a dissonance in musical language. A different kind of relationship, a more pleasing, agreeable relationship in the realm of color, where maybe complementaries are involved or some kind of color harmony is reflected in harmony in music. So that'll be a whole range of possibility for us in the coming age. To emphasize especially the color aspect in this letter, begging you to remember always that all sounds express themselves in color. You know, vibration, light, sound, and color. It's a fourfold sequence we did in Treatise on Cosmic Fire. There are other sequences, you know, beginning with sound, but let's just say that all of them are related via their range of vibration. And our sensory apparatus to register those ranges of vibration, I guess we have a sensory apparatus which is not yet acute with respect to the vibrational input from higher points of tension. And most of us are quite confined to the five senses, and other higher correspondences are in process of development. To a certain extent, they existed before in Atlantean times, but sometimes you have to shut off one type of sensitivity in order to achieve concentration upon and even reception of a different frequency. I had a blind friend in music school who was super accurate in his ear. He could hear everything. And he knew the musical language in a way that sighted people rarely know. And you have to wonder, you know, was there a privation of one sense in order to develop yet another sense? We don't see everything the solar angel sees lives ahead. And what might look to us as a questionable development and even an inhibition may have a long-range beneficent purpose. So we have to have this degree of trust that there is supervision by a higher intelligence, and that in one sense, all is well, regardless of the difficulties we seem to experience as personalities. Going on then, when the Logos uttered the great cosmic word for this solar system, 3 major streams of color issued forth, breaking almost simultaneously into another 4, so, attribute and aspect and attribute, 3 and 4, so giving us the 7 streams of color, by which, the 7 rays are called 7 rays of light. And from these rays, a great building project takes shape. Now, they look like fanciful symbolic writing, but I think he's describing exactly what happens. Now, he has access to the Shambolic library, maybe certain sections of it, and maybe the record can be read, and these kinds of early solar systemic events can be witnessed in some way via the record. And that utterance, it seems most likely to be a thought utterance, unless we really anthropomorphize the Logos and give him ears and eyes and nose and a mouth and so forth. So probably what we might call thought utterance. Goodness. So the 7 streams came forth, and it invites the analogy of the weaver who uses these threads in the warp and woof of the loom that weaves solar system into what it must become according to the design of the weaver. Analogies help us a little bit, I think. Okay, these colors are blue, green, blue, indigo, green, yellow, orange, red, and violet. Now, what we've got to notice is that the blue seems to be taking place of the first ray position. And red, which is one of the usual first ray colors, is associated with the Martian aspect of the 6th ray. The others are pretty much what we would expect, the major ray being indigo, as differentiated probably from some kind of lighter blue, green for the 3rd ray, yellow for the 4th, orange for the 5th. Basically, we want to, now do I want to do this? Let's see. Let's see. There's blue, and here would be a deeper color, an indigo. And here, shades would not be correct, but they're at least representative. That looks maybe a little dark. That's the green, and here is the so you can see it, we've got to make it as dark as possible, but not easily done. Yellow, and then orange, one of the colors of the fifth ray, a more of an exoteric color. And here is our something orange, and then here is Martian red. So, this suggests, that the first ray has red, and so does the sixth. So actually, I was doing this a little bit incorrectly. And just to establish at first the colors. So we have them before our eye, at least a little bit. More colors, and let's call that violet. Okay. So in this relationship between ray 1 and ray 6, there is a relationship, and it may be that Mars has a fifth ray monad, but an ultimate first ray, maybe like the Earth, maybe. We don't know, but we do know that Uranus does have a first ray monad. And is it the ultimate higher monadic ray, the major ray of the monad? An ambiguous phrase, because it can mean that the monad has a major and a minor ray, or it can mean that when you talk about the monadic ray, it is the major ray compared to the solar ray, which is a secondary. But we have to try to understand why the blue should be substituted for what might normally be the red when we consider the first ray. Now, I'm going to look at this and take us to esoteric psychology right around page 420. And here we have colors. And maybe just take a quick look. Bring it down there, and we see esoteric colors, exoteric colors for each of the rays. I'll just, go over them very quickly. Lots about every ray, but the exoteric color is orange for the first ray, and then red esoterically. Whereas, for Mars, the red is relating to the sixth ray, and it's an exoteric color. But if it has an ultimate first one, it's also an esoteric color. When it comes to the second ray, the exoteric is indigo with a tinge of purple, and esoteric light blue. And this is quite different. I mean, is the Tibetan giving these, or is he repeating what's in the secret doctrine? Because there is a secret doctrine in reference here. Esoteric is light blue, Secret Doctrine 3, page 461. And the indigo that we have considered to be the major synthetic ray is talked about as being exoteric. Is that really true? When it comes to the third ray, exoteric black, and that makes sense, in relation to the overcoming via the ignorance of form what is the true vision, the true revelation. And green, the normal color, is esoteric. And then this is unusual for ray 4, a cream color. Now, I don't know where that comes from the Tibetan or from the secret doctrine, but our normal ray 4 color is yellow. But when DK talks about the third ray monad, he uses yellow, third ray monad, not the fourth ray monad. With ray 5, we have yellow esoteric. Is that so? Or is there a misprint? And esoteric color, indigo, it almost looks like it's, well, maybe there's two esoteric colors there. Orange is an exoteric color of ray 5. And then this particular, compilation is very useful. Ray 6, well, it is exoteric, even though it's esoteric for ray 1. So exoterically red, ray 1, and maybe, there's some difference in hue, and the esoteric color is silvery rose. When it's silver, it's not gold. It harkens back to the third aspect. Finally, we have exoterically white. I guess the synthesis of all the colors as white for ray 7, and esoterically violet. A lot of information here. Still not complete, but a lot. And I think we have to keep those in mind. What's coming in, via the fifth ray is very interesting, because really 3 colors are involved in this fifth ray. One of them is not mentioned, and it is orange. And, when you look at the basic color of the egoic lotus, it is orange. And the egoic lotus is upon the plane of mind, higher mind. I think complementaries are blue and orange, some shade of blue and orange. So ray 2 and 5 are involved. I guess maybe the most mysterious is how blue can be connected with first ray, unless it's because it's this particular second ray solar system. Some police are the men in blue, and they certainly have a first ray function, but not necessarily all. In the United States, which has a sixth ray personality, there is a blue quality. And the blue of the police uniform can be as much ray 6 as ray 1. Not all the colors are listed in this tabulation, but it's really a very revelatory tabulation, and one which we're going to want to study as we study along here. You can understand that DK has laid out what we might consider a massive curriculum, even though from his perspective, it's just, the ABC. So again, humility and caution, care as we proceed. Okay. Now going back to where we were. What page was this that we were on? Or pages in Esoteric Psychology 1. You never know where you're going to find good stuff, Right there, we're using the word esoteric to indicate the monadic ray of Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn. What does he say? As long as we're, right there. Saturn, the stabilizer, and esoterically speaking. So that word esoteric really means monadic, because we do know that Uranus has a race 7 soul that's kind of esoteric, isn't it? A 6 soul is kind of esoteric. Saturn may be double ray 3 on the soul level, and ray 3 also on the monadic level, but are expressions of the 3 major rays. So the day for Uranus has not yet dawned, and more towards the end of this solar system and into the next will be the day for Uranus to truly express itself in a first ray solar system, and Earth too will have something special to do with its first ray monad. And you kind of wonder about Mars, Mars will still be with us. Maybe by that time, all the planets will be relatively sacred, but will also esoteric, as the word esoteric seems to mean monadic. What's important for us is to experience the oneness which the monad reveals. We can have all kinds of correspondences, but if these correspondences are simply a result of mental gymnastics, we're not really penetrating into the higher energy. We just have a mental formulation. It's good in a way, but it's not enough. All right. So there are some colors here. And we'll try to get to the bottom of that blue. Also in the occult notice, if I can I find it? I don't know. Well, here's what we would notice with the egoic lotus. And this is the one that Tuya has done. I think, it has a greater accuracy of color. There is the blue and the indigo. Red itself does not participate in the color differentiation of the petals. There may be an overall, maybe hue of red for first ray souls, people who have the predominance of the first ray in their egoic lotus, but in terms of the colors given to us, there is no red in any of the petals. So this differentiates itself from an earlier color representation of the egoic lotus, which was very helpful, but the rose is what we need and not the red. But notice, this is the blue and this is the indigo. And in some of the 5 colored petals, we have both blue and indigo side by side. So there is the differentiation here in the Occult Lotus, just the way when we're listing the colors, there is a differentiation as well. Blue, ray 1, indigo, ray 2. Was the synthetic ray, but then what's difficult there is that it's listed as exoteric on whatever page it is, 420 something in there. In Esoteric Psychology 1, but if it's the great synthetic ray, you kind of wonder, why is it considered to be an exoteric color? And sometimes in the secret doctrine, colors are listed as according to their meaning in the previous solar system. DKSR talks about that, and Mrs. Besant, Annie Besant, gave some color representations, and they had to do with the previous solar system, at least as I understand it. So everything is subject to this law of mutation, and we have to keep abreast of the changes. I mean, could it be, and I'm just, thinking here, speculating that, yeah, well, maybe indigo was exoteric in the previous solar system, but now is esoteric. Maybe light blue was esoteric in the previous solar system, but now is exoteric. Interesting that light blue, I think, should be, or at least a blue that is not indigo, should be connected with the sixth ray. Not only the color rose, silvery rose, because he tells us with X-ray going out, the blue flowers are disappearing and the seventh ray coming in the violet flowers are taking the place of the blue flowers. Personally, I'm going to miss that. How do you have a bluebell that's violet, But anyway, there's a constant flux in the apprehension of color and the understanding of complementary colors and maybe supplementary colors, just like angles in geometry, complementary, supplementary, will have to be considered. In any case, no red in the petal structure of the Occult Lotus, though the general tinge may have some red, but rather blue and rose. And think about what Master Kutumi controls in terms of devas, the blue devas and the rose devas. Well, it's a 2 and 6 combination. That particular blue would be associated with 6, and also with the rose, actually. Blue even more with ray 2, perhaps. There's a bridge there between ray 6 and 2 via the blue. And maybe there's a bridge between ray 6 and 1, although that's not the usual mode of transition. From 6, it usually goes to a 3 or a 2, but maybe there's a bridge via red from the 6th ray to the 1st ray. The rays of aspect in combination produce the rays of attribute. And there is reason to think that ray 1 and 2 produce ray 4, but ray 1 and 2 have a lot to do with ray 6 as well, on 2 and 3 for ray 6, but in a way you don't want to dismiss that first ray in the very straight line motion of Mars and of ray 6. So certainly for ray 7, all three colors are involved, or all three rays of aspect. And are only 2 aspect involved in ray 6, or are 3? Well, anyway, I've settled for the moment on 2 and 3 because there's so much of the activity aspect and of the attraction aspect in ray 6, but the straight line progressive motion, run not so straight, we are told when we're on the 6th ray. Only that particular first ray, that particular straight line path leads to the outer periphery and not to the center. But can it be that 3 rays also combine to make the 6th ray what it is, or only 2? You can find something for each activity for each of the rays, 1, 2, and 3, in ray 6. Definitely the activity of ray 3, the attraction of ray 2, and the forward progressive straight line motion, progress onward, of ray 6, even too straight, without heeding that which is larger and surrounding. So, there's just no way to wrap all of this color up and to say, this is how it is, because there are just different perspectives, and maybe at different points of evolution, different colors take over. I mean, if ray 5 is orange exoterically, and maybe we will find that at a higher stage of evolution, we've got to look to indigo for ray 5. And I think it does say so. Quickly to, right around page 420. Let's see if I can get that correct. Indigo. And that would immediately relate it to, relate ray 5 and ray 2, which supposedly is exoteric indigo. But as a synthetic ray, you've got to say, well, it certainly sounds to me esoteric. So we have 2 esoteric colors for ray 5, and maybe now indigo has taken its larger position in relation to ray 2. We are supposedly in the system of the indigo, of the blue logos. But what blue are we talking about? Is it indeed the great synthetic ray, the indigo ray, and is that the blue we're talking about for our solar system, which has its second ray soul, and maybe ray monad ultimately, and presently a second ray personality? So, like I say, no cut and dried, open a book and find out which color is which ray is which planet. There are just shifting points of view. And let's see if this is the correct one. Yeah. So, not unwittingly. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm on the right. It looks like it. Yeah, it is. Not unwittingly have I placed them in this order, but the exact significance is left for you to discover. So one of the already. a blind. Occult blind is presented to us. Now the order is good, but and makes sense, except the order even makes sense in terms of red for ray 6, but why blue for ray 1? You know, if it was indigo, the solar logos is the great authority and is in the commanding position, and you could say that the entire of the solar logos is as the director of the solar system, and for that reason goes to a commanding or ray 1 position. But why the blue? Why not the indigo? The only thing is that we're told that our solar logos has deflected a lot of the ray 1 energy in this solar system because that logos wants to work on consciousness and with the law of attraction. And this is primarily a second ray solar system because it has a personality ray 2. The soul ray will always stay ray 2, although if the analogy holds good with a human being, you cannot begin as a human being with a second ray soul, not ray 1, not ray 2, and not ray 3. You cannot begin with a second ray, third ray, or first ray soul as a human being. Can it be possible that a solar logos cannot begin as a second ray soul, but something else? Now, since it became a second ray soul, which it is now, can it be, if the analogy holds good, that it was at first either a ray 6 soul, cosmically considered, or a ray 4 soul, cosmically considered? Well, it's something, you know, that we, kind of a history that one day we'll be able to enter. We have to be careful not to be like Mr. Sinnott, who was inquiring of Master KH and all kinds of questions and was asking questions that pertain to the 5th or 6th initiation. He didn't know it, of course, but Master KH had to demur and say, no, we can't deal with these things because you're asking questions that are revealed at your particular state and for publication that many would read. So it's left to us basically to discover the only out of place assignment, which seems to be blue for ray 1. Ponder on this. You know, blue has a complement of orange, and orange is the exoteric ray 1. So sometimes, and maybe it's exoteric because our solar system has not fully assimilated ray 1, assimilating it rather superficially compared with its esoteric depth. Now, what I want to say is sometimes a color intended is spoken of in relation to its complement, and that's what Master DK tells us. You don't say the color because you kind of blind it, and you put down its complement instead. Well, blue is the complement of orange, saying that in general because maybe the shades, the frequency to do with it, which shade of blue, shade of orange, which frequency of blue, which frequency of orange are, in a way, polar opposites. And it is possible that ray 1 is weakened with respect to our solar system because of a deliberate choice of our solar logos. And in the tetractys, the 5 is exactly below the 1. So the orange of the 5 could be the orange of the 1. And then we would not be leaving out the red. We would have the 6 colors we need. Perhaps we would have red for ray 6 and the note C. Well, I won't bring in the notes. We'll have orange for ray 1 as esoteric because superficially absorbed. More deeply absorbed in relation to ray 5. We'll have yellow. We've got in relation to ray 4, the third in music. Can't stay away from music. We have green for ray 3. We have we have indigo for ray 2. But sometimes to differentiate the blue from the indigo, at least musically, we're looking at the note G and the note A. A would then be the indigo note, and G would be the blue note. But maybe we don't need blue here if we have indigo. And when it comes to ray 5, we would have the orange. And ray 6 would be the violet. Excuse me, ray 7 would be the violet. I'm thinking of the musical scale as I go along here. And then again, red on a higher turn of the spiral. So 6 colors, basically, with a repetition of orange. Is there anything we're leaving out? Red, orange, yellow, green. We're leaving blue out of the picture because it doubles for orange. Ray 1 and ray 5. Then violet and red again. So maybe that's the reason that it's not really a blue, but it's put down as a complementary color of orange, which is exoterically ray 1, as we've just read. And has that been from the secret doctrine? I have to keep switching back and forth so you can see it, and I oftentimes miss. It is. It is from the secret doctrine. And then you have to, question. It apparently is the exoteric color and having to do with the previous solar system. Anyway, red, which is esoteric, is not assigned to ray 1 or to the note C, unless we consider it to be a sixth ray note. So maybe that's the closest that I can come. And for me, it's kind of a new thought that the blue isn't blue, it's a complement of the orange. Just the way violet and yellow are complements and red and green are complements. I'm no expert in the question of color, nor really in music either, but I know a little something. Different angles of vision are given here. And if we begin combining them all, we'll see quite a variegated picture, which it's easy to skip over. So can we remember? Ray 1, orange, exoteric, red, esoteric. Ray 2, indigo, exoteric, light blue, esoteric. But then again, problem with indigo because it is the great synthetic ray, and I think there's an esoteric position. Ray 3, black, exoteric, green, esoteric. Ray 4, cream color, exoteric, yellow, esoteric. Ray 5, esoteric yellow, esoteric, and indigo esoteric, unless there's a misprint. But orange is missing, and orange is definitely connected with Ray 5 as the solar angels, have for their vehicle an egoic lotus with the basic hue of orange. And let's see. Well, actually what we do see, okay, is that there's not one petal that doesn't have orange in it. First petal orange, second petal orange, third petal orange, fourth petal orange, fifth petal orange, sixth petal orange. And the fifth petal, is somehow doubling up on the rose. Is that the only petal that has a double emphasis of a color? And sixth petal orange, seventh petal orange, yes, eighth petal orange, ninth petal orange, the basic color of the egoic lotus, which is found on the fifth plane, the fifth solar plane, the fifth systemic plane. Solar and systemic are both used equally there. And the solar planes and the systemic planes, they are identical, and they are cosmic subplanes. Just as long as we get that clear. Okay. So maybe, maybe one will learn something. I feel I've learned something here because I never could account for the blue as Ray 1, except that, we have a blue logos and he's in authority, he's in a commanding position, and that's a Ray 1 position and so forth. But in terms of complementary colors, yes, then we can account for Ray 1. Blue will be orange, and then you'll have a doubling up of orange, which also makes sense because in the Tetractys, the 5 is under the 1, and fifth ray souls resolve upon the first ray. So there's a bridge there between the fifth ray and the first ray. Orange is also a separative color, it's even separative in sound in a way. Just try to find a word that rhymes with the word orange. It's very separative. It has to do with cleavage, and it has to do with the assertion of some kind of separate identity that we can call the emerging out of the mass consciousness. It's related also to Leo and to the, kind of yellowish orange light. So DK says, I want to emphasize a second thought. Even streams of color were the product of logoic meditation. Okay, I mean, and of course, the vibrations are what we experience in our sensorium as orange. It's our subjective reaction to vibration. The logos meditated, brooded, conceived mentally, formed in our world, which we can call an archetypal world, and maybe that should be, those should be capitalized, formed an ideal world and built it up in thought matter on the cosmic mental plane, presumably. Built up, let's say, built up on the higher subplanes of the cosmic mental plane, just the way the soul will conceive the general archetype of the coming incarnation, will conceive it on the higher mental plane, and then proceed to support the creation of vehicles in interacting with the devas who work through the permanent atoms and so forth. The soul will magically help to create the instrument during the period of appropriation, which can last a good long time before the soul manages to produce a viable incarnation. And then our objective universe flashed into being, radiant with the 7 colors, with the deep blue or indigo as the synthetic undertone. So you see why I'm hesitant to look at indigo as an exotic color. Whoop, that's not too good. Let's see if I make this blue. Well, it's close to, this is indigo, okay? This is the indigo color. And just about missing from view, except for discovery. I'm just like very childish discovery yesterday that I could make the print white. Seems obvious, doesn't it? So it's the synthetic undertone. I wonder, as an undertone, does that mean that all things arise from it? Undertones and overtones, it cannot be a random choice of words. We do in the Sanskrit script seem to have that bar above the letters that come down from it, but we often think of the bar as kind of a pedal tone with all the different notes arising from it as partials are harmonics. But the question is the bar at a higher frequency or a lower frequency? It seems to suggest a lower frequency, and yet it's above the emerging letters and probably above the emerging notes. So that has to be sorted out. Therefore, certain things can be posited about color. Because color, color means to veil, to cloak, to obscure. It is not the agent of transparency. We usually get so fascinated by the color, it's kind of a superficiality, but the Shelley poem captures it. Life like a dome of many-colored glass stains the white radiance of eternity. Beautiful words, I think. And reflecting in art and poetry that which was being researched by Newton in terms of the prism and the breaking down of white light into its constituent rainbow colors. So color is beautiful and attractive, and yet it veils the white radiance of eternity. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Transparency, okay. Therefore, certain things can be posited about color. It has to do with objective meditation and therefore with form. The sequence in TCF is vibration, light, sound, and finally, color. Now, it is a kind of dense vehicle for the realm of pure vibration. So, when you're dealing with the personality, you're dealing with mind, emotions, ether, body. That's the density. When you're dealing with the higher planes, we have logoic, monadic, atmic, and Buddhic. That's the vehicle. And maybe from another perspective, we have monadic, atmic, higher mental, and causal. Causal is the vehicle. So the number 4 suggests the vehicle of an inherent triplicity, and that number 4 also relates to Jupiter in its material aspect, because Jupiter has so much ray 7 for embodiment and rules the ancestral. Fires exalted in Cancer, sign of embodiment. And involved in producing the outer vehicle. So basically that number 4 gives embodiment, just like Cancer gives embodiment. Number 4 of color gives final embodiment, just as the sign Cancer gives embodiment to Aries, Taurus, Gemini, triplicity. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, triplicity, okay. Aries, the mind. Taurus, the desire nature. Gemini, the etheric nature. And then Cancer, the moon, the density. And one of the sacred, non-sacred planets is the moon, which represents the dense outer, which is unprincipled and taken from a former time. So I think we can see the connections there about the, so let's just say that thus, in general, we have the materiality of the number 4. It also is ethereality in as much as it suggests the Buddhic plane, which is the entry into the cosmic ethers, above the personality of the planetary logos and solar logos, which ends on the on the plane of higher mind. At least we know that for the solar logos, the person, his personality, his, what we can call it, his dense physical vehicle, rather, ends with the ending of the higher mental plane. For the planetary logos, the higher mental plane may be some kind of transitional gaseous-like plane. And maybe the dense physical vehicle begins with the concrete mind and not with the higher mind, maybe. Okay, so it has to do with objective meditation, and therefore it has to do with form. It, i.e., color. Okay, it is color. It has to do with objective meditation, and therefore form. So, when we get caught in all these, sometimes people think that when they go on an astral trip and they come up with all kinds of colors, they are really meditating, but basically they're being caught in some kind of most outer phenomena in the sequence: vibration, light, sound, color. All right. It is the result of sound uttered as the culmination of meditation. So, what shall we say? Color arises from sound. We seem to be saying that, certainly in this, Now there are other sequences, but we have the cosmic fire sequence of vibration subplane 1, light subplane 2, sound subplane 3, which fits Saturn, throat center, sound, and color subplane 4, the vehicular subplane. In these 7 colors and their wise comprehension lies the capacity of man to do as does the Logos and build. So, in this fourth ray monadic age, which is coming up, and actually the number 1924, the date 1924 is mentioned in Cosmic Fire as a kind of beginning for a fourth ray emergence. Well, it certainly was the year before the ashrams were transferred to the fourth plane. So many of them, that is, especially I think the 2, 4, 6 ashrams. The fourth plane, the Buddhic plane. The wise comprehension, we're far from that, of these colors. We can build. Okay, so we can build through the substance of color. I was in Los Angeles a long time ago and, met some people who were deeply into the color therapy and its medical applications. One of the first methods of healing to emerge, but I think we're going to find that even in the building of form, the frequencies characteristic of various colors will be noted and used. Some of the terms applied in particle physics seem almost like artistic terms which don't have a lot to do with the fifth ray, but somehow indicate what's going on that level, and maybe some of the color language fits in there. I think I have a dim thought of it, but in Leadbeater's and Besant's occult chemistry, I think color does play its role in the formation of the different elements. And certainly it's not just geometry. There's got to be color involved in that formation. The esoteric formation, I would just say color may be involved in the esoteric formation of the elements per Besant and Leadbeater. Leadbeater, I guess we all, that's quite an indicative name, isn't it? We're trying to get that base metal lead into a responsive condition so that it can be transmuted into the higher elements or the higher metals, What have we in terms of metals? Well, I think we have maybe gold as a metal is more ray 1, perhaps, and tin, ray 2, lead, ray 3. And then assigning these metals, well, copper, it's a Venusian factor. Is it ray 5 or is it ray 6 because of the solar plexus of the solar logos being associated with Venus? I'm not talking about mixture metals so much. I'm not talking about like steel. Iron, definitely Mars, ray 6. Steel strengthens it. Bronze is a mixture. I'm sure I'm leaving out some colors here of the metals. And I could go to this, to good old, and I could say, what are the 7 metals? Okay, well, there we go. I forgot silver. I think ray 3, and maybe gold ray 1, silver ray 3, copper ray 5, tin ray, lead, maybe the heavy aspect of ray 7 and 7. You know, the obduracy of matter. Iron ray 6, mercury ray 4. These are the metals of antiquity, and they have an occult and planetary significance. And so I'll do this, and I'll make an assignment. Nope, that's not correct, what I did there. I always have to make sure that I'm recording. Gold ray 1, tin, the preserver, ray 2. Silver, ray 3. The legend is that Judas sold the Christ for 30 pieces of silver. We'd have to get into the structure of silver to see how it relates to ray 3, but we could certainly study the periodic table and find a way to correlate it with the rays. The esoteric author and scientist Melvin Ardley, good position to do that. Silver ray 3, Mercury ray 4, Venus copper, I think ray 5, iron, and here's why I want to say copper is related to Venus. We have a church here in Finland. I think it's called, well, it has a Finnish name, but it's known to visitors as the Church in the Rock. And you go in there, it's been carved out of stone. It's been inlaid in a wall of stone, and above is this huge dome of copper with many concentric and other bands of copper. And so you might say that sitting in there and meditating, you get quite a dose of the Venus energy. So, and this would be incorrect. I put copper, Venus, iron, Mars, ray 6. Notice that iron will break easily unless it is made into steel. And it's an alloy, steel is that, and it strengthens the iron. And finally, maybe lead, Saturn, ray 7. Now, from another point of view, Well, sorry. Have silver as ray 7, opposite gold, and Saturn as lead and ray 3. So somewhere in there, now Saturn, of course, and Moon are very related. So we could have a Moon as silver as ray 7, opposite gold, which is ray 1, and that would make a lot of sense. And then Saturn would be that material aspect. And we know that when it comes to the problems we have in our solar system and maybe local cosmos, they do have to do with the third ray being out of adjustment. You can even see in the Big Dipper how the third ray star Alioth doesn't quite line up with the arc of the handle of the Dipper. It's too low, at least from our perspective. And thus tells us something about difficulty in achieving a sufficiently high vibration in all third ray matters. Perhaps I was saying, when you look at Saturn, the glyph, it's the cross over the moon. So these two are interchangeable in a funny kind of way, or at least an undetectable, strange way. And presently in our Earth chain, the Earth scheme has basically disappeared, and only the residual corpse of the physicalized moon remains disintegrating, and the chain which has taken its place is called the Saturn chain. So there's a definite connection there with physicality. Saturn ruling all kinds of physicality, and is the permanent atom of the cosmic physical plane within the solar logos system. And the moon is a much smaller entity, having to do with Earth, whatever Earth represents, maybe the mental unit, or, well, it certainly represents the base of the spine. And the moon of the 5 non-sacred planets does represent the outer crust. But Saturn represents that too. And Saturn represents the concrete mind. Saturn represents, in a way, the abstract mind of the triad, because you have basically one way of considering it, Uranus Atma, Neptune Buddhi, and Saturn Manus. But you can reverse Saturn and Uranus, and then Saturn definitely rules the atmic plane, and it's found on the very highest logoic plane. So there's so much about materiality that connects Saturn and the moon. And so as we look to see, in relation to the metals here, what ray position they represent, we have the right to consider some kind of reversal. Interesting, the Shiva, destroyer, Vishnu, the preserver, and Brahma, the creator. So, from another point of view, Saturn ruling the throat center is ruling a highly creative center. And, well, maybe out of the substance of lead, much creation evolves. But tin is the preserving metal, and it's so interesting to consider it in a second ray position. At least in the old days, the tin can kept food substances from decay. So that's not just a coincidence. And then gold, well, it is gold rules, but it has many applications. It can be connected with a lower aspect of the third ray, but it can be connected with prana and flowing golden substance of the third ray and the radiance of the second ray, and this masterfulness of the first ray, considering our golden solar logos. So anyway, what we're doing here is looking at the kinds of associations which can occur when we are in pursuit of pure reason, whether from the lower perspective of the abstract mind or the higher perspective of buddhi. Now, what else? Colors have certain effects on the different vehicles and on the planes on which those vehicles function. Well, in a way, as far as man is concerned, color, the yellow is the ruler of the Buddhic plane, and is also a part ruler of the mental plane, for instance. And when you want to, now this is interesting, when you want to shut off disturbing psychism, you use the color yellow, and it closes off the solar plexus so that you don't receive and you are not overcome by samana. But DK says, well, so many psychics, they don't want to shut it off because they are invested in it in terms of their personality and the psychism. Okay, but still, we see, for instance, how the color yellow works there. It is Buddhic, it is mental, it is shutting off the astral vulnerability. Imagine that the color red would be very stimulating to the astral body, and on a higher turn of the spiral would promote the presence of will. Think about China with its red dragons and how much red it uses. And of course, when it went to communism, it was called Red China. First ray color, it's a first ray soul. And yet it's a Taurus soul, and Taurus is not red. The intricacy, it was a complicated subject. So when it is known by the occultist which color is applicable to which plane, and which color therefore is the basic hue for that plane, he has grasped the fundamental secret of microcosmic development and can build his body of manifestation by means of the same laws that the logos employed in building his objective solar system. Okay. Well, maybe we can, find some sense color is applicable to which plane. Maybe we'll look at that in a moment and see if we can find something there that makes sense. This is going to be my new method, which will allow two things. You'll see the words and we'll get a color, in this case, sort of violet, representing how things manifest. So this is the secret of ray meditation, which will eventually yield up to the wise student. So these 4 points lay the foundation for all that follows. And the 4 points again, reviewing. Color has to do with objective meditation. That's a point, isn't it? Point number 2, it, or again, color, is the it's the result of sound uttered as the culmination of meditation. Maybe a word breaks forth after being prepared in meditation. The capacity to build as the logos can build, weaving the colors together. 4th point, yes. Certain effects on certain vehicles and on the planes on which these vehicles function. Okay, 4 points. This is the secret of ray meditation, and will eventually, and he gives, so many methods of ray meditation from the old commentary. Maybe difficult to understand at times, but he gives them for integration formulas, fusion formulas, general descriptions of the rays, ray healing formulas, formulas for the laws of the soul according to ray. So there's no question that we have the opportunity to use various ray meditations. We have ray meditation, and that's probably one of the great methods that we don't realize DK has given us, but indeed he has given us the. So these 4 points lay the foundation for all that follows. And DK make sure the foundation is well planted, stable, etc. Sorry, I'm been doing a lot of talking on these programs and so forth. I would here seek to put your mind at rest on the point as to whether the colors enumerated by me conflict with those enumerated. Now notice, word relates color to number by HBB. You will not find they do, but both of us use blinds, and both of us use the same blinds as those who have eyes can see. So, putting a complementary color down when a different color is meant is one of those blinds. Maybe we can discover others. A blind is not a blind when recognized, and I offer not the key. 1 or 2 hints I may give. Right. Complementary colors may be spoken of in occult books in terms of each other. Red may be called green and orange may be called blue. That's the one we just examined, didn't we? Blue may be called orange. The key to the accurate interpretation lies in the point of attainment of the unit under discussion. Now, thinking about our Earth and our solar system, we are not on a sacred planet, and we're not yet in a sacred solar system. So maybe the kind of hangover from the previous solar system is still very powerful, the third ray hangover. And maybe that's why we can speak of the first ray in terms of its exoteric color, orange, which is the complement of blue. If speaking of the ego, one term may be used, if of the personality another, whilst the monad or higher auric sphere may be described synthetically in terms of the monadic ray. I wonder, if we looked at it, well, maybe if we look at the fifth ray, for instance, because there is such a thing as a fifth ray monad, okay? So if we, let's try to find an example here. Complementary colors may be spoken of in terms of each other. I do want to really somehow emphasize that. Yeah, okay. So, I think that's what we ran into right there when putting ray 1 as blue in a system which was not yet absorbing maybe esoteric ray 1. And the way we could tell that or about that would be that the egoic lotus does not have petal structure which demonstrates ray 1. Though, as I said, maybe a basic tinge of some kind. We can all discover that for ourselves when we can see with accuracy the egoic lotus. So looking for an example, as an example, maybe the ray 5 personality relates to orange. The ray 5 soul to yellow, and the ray monad to indigo, esoteric. And yellow is esoteric too, but not orange. So that's an example. We seem to have 3 colors going there for ray 5. Interestingly, the number 3 from the bottom, 5th plane, 3 from the bottom. That number 3 is connected with some ray 5 words of power, like 3 minds unite. It's not exactly the same correspondence as personality, soul, monad, but it is a 3. The colors of higher or lower mind are at times spoken in terms of the plane and not of the ray involved. Well, can we say that the lower mind relates to the, and the higher mind to the color indigo. The plane self, consisting of both higher mind and lower mind, is related to orange. And I think Tuya got that here when we were looking at the possibilities. Okay, so there we are. Violet, light blue, or maybe rose, of colors that are not mixtures, because, you know, rose color seems to be a mixture of red and white. Blue might be the thing, the blue of water, reflecting the sky. Orange is the general color of the fifth plane, yellow, as far as man is concerned, of the fourth, green of the third, and indigo of the second plane, and red of the first. So these particular colors refer to the plane, and that might be another way of blinding. Now, you know, maybe it's fairly easy to pick up complementary color blinds. The main complements that we have, you know, seventh, violet and yellow, blue and red and green. And maybe, you know, for indigo, it will be an orange, but maybe of a lighter hue as we move towards yellow, orangey yellow, which is kind of the color that DK asks us to use in that meditation on triangles, which was given to the Jesuit priest. His name was Monchart, one of DK's group members. And we use it in our triangles meditation, kind of an orangey yellow, but definitely yellow when it comes to violet. And maybe a deeper shade of orange when it comes to the normal blue. I'd have to research that a little bit, but we seem, as we get darker, to be, okay, maybe I can just ask that. Ask Google, you know, when you don't know. So let's see here. What is the complementary color of indigo? And let's see if I can here is something that is useful, where the fifth ray, you know, comes in, and we can just check quickly. Here, you know, we can also look for a color wheel. Indigo, orange, indigo and orange, violet and yellow, red and red. It says red and blue. Okay, well, that's interesting, because from this point of view, red may be spoken of in terms of green, and green in terms of red, esoterically, but there is a shade of red that we call magenta, kind of a purplish red, which is said to be the complement of green. And we have not distinguished blue per se. So indigo color, people search for color wheel. And here maybe is one of our color wheel. Oh my, yes, it certainly is a color wheel. Pretty nice ones here. So let's make sure, yeah, we have that. So primaries are considered, at least in pigment, I suppose, red, yellow, and blue. Maybe in terms of light, they're considered red, green, and what would be maybe indigo. We have opposites going on here, so this primary of blue seems to have a red, an orange connected with it. Magenta, violet to primary and primary yellow, pigment primary, and we have a still darker purple, and it looks like a lighter orange. And the secondary colors here are considered, looks like we have kind of an octahedron, but maybe not complete, because there's only 6 sides here. And secondary colors are green and or violet. Let's see and look at another color wheel for opposites. And I wonder, this is a simplified one, yellow and purple, green and red. Well, in this case, it's as the Tibetan says, blue and orange. And this one tends to be a little more complex. The red and the green are opposites. Green and kind of magenta are opposites, and definitely the violet and the yellow are opposites. And the yellow, the darker blue, will be a lighter orange, and a lighter blue will be a darker orange, and a still lighter will be a still darker orange. I wonder if I can copy that. Copy the image and hope for the best, do you think? Okay. Let's see what we have here and whether it's worth, yeah, I can go back to that so you can see. And, maybe this is the closest I've ever come to studying this subject. And let's see here. I think I may have done this one. Yeah, I did. And this is the simplified color wheel, right? And here is something that looks a lot more like light, per se. And we see the gradients going on here. And this is another, I think, useful wheel. Is it the same one? No, it's like the one we did before. Yeah. Okay, and let's see what else. Maybe this one would be good. Okay. And let's see what else we might want to look at. This is still more complex, but maybe we're looking at, here we're looking at warm colors and cool colors as they are often described. Copy image. And let's see if I can. Okay. I think we're getting kind of the idea, but the idea of primaries and secondaries are important. Now, and right here, there is a problem. Because in terms of light, green is considered a primary. And in terms of pigment, yellow is considered a primary. DK uses both. The previous universe, the previous solar system, was the Fa system, the F system, the green system. And that was, I think, a primary in terms of light. But when DK speaks about the monad, well, then he uses pigment. Why would that be so? Is there something so substantial, so material about the monad, maybe the monadic vehicle? Anyway, we do get a sense of the progression, and the lighter is one complement, the darker is its complement, it seems. Well, at least the lightest orange gives us the the darkest blue purple, and the dark orange gives us the maybe I can't really say what I just said. Maybe let's just say that here magenta opposes the light green. And let's see if I can make this a little bit, yeah, a little bit bigger. Magenta opposes the light green, and violet opposes quite a light color, yellow. But red opposes a darker green, and red is darker than magenta, it seems. And the light blue is a darker orange. So in a way, that is true, that when we have one darker complement, it seems to have a lighter complementary color on the other side. Well, this is just probably a child's ABC in the study of color, but we want to know the qualities, and we want to know the true frequency. I don't think it can be pinned down that this is the particular occult frequency that's being used when speaking of a particular color. In the same way that it's very difficult to pin down what is the true A? What is the true middle C? I mean, 416 vibrations per second? Maybe. Or is it 250, for the A, and then 256 for the middle C? It's a nice number because when you start doubling numbers, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 122, 56, then you find that it's working out in terms of multiples. Red is always a primary, it seems. But yellow is not. And when it comes to blue, is blue really a primary? Or should green be considered the primary? Some sort of shade of magenta be considered primary. So red, but here we have at least in pigment, have to keep the light wheel distinct from the pigment wheel. Now let's see if there's anything else here to include. This is, of course, well, this one is good. This one's very good. And there it is. And the overlap of all the colors produces white at the center. And this is a light wheel. We are dealing with colors as light here. And are complements shown here? Not exactly, because two complements are next to each other. The violet should be a little darker, and the yellow. And here are complements, the red and the green. And we don't really have an orange in this particular presentation. Let's see what else. It's wonderful to have a resource like this. The ultimate guide to color theory, I suppose. And it gets just more and more complex. So what I'm going to do is just add a few more. Okay. And let's make sure that, yeah, you're looking at me do that. Okay. Well, I think we have enough in terms of color wheels to, we have enough here to have a pretty good idea of how it works. And we'll try to make things maybe a little bigger. But it's certainly centered, isn't it? And I think by a study of these wheels, here, this is even more complex. And it gives us all of these shades. Maybe we won't get into that. I think it's probably just too much for us right now. And this is called what? Color of the Day. Or no, excuse me, Color Theory. And I think it's worth putting this one in as well. Well, I'm just getting attracted by all these colors. There we go. Okay, now I'm just trying to get this to move. Just get it to move. Yeah, and that is a little off center perhaps, but okay. See, I suppose this question of 6 and 7, and sometimes the 7 is white. And when we look at the spectrum, however, we get red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. We get 7, and then white. White is 8. So maybe white is related to the completion of the keep us thinking about what the Tibetan is saying. Okay, I'm just trying to find the right place. Okay, now we get into his descriptions. What we see here, the colors of higher or lower mind, only those two, are at time and not in terms of the ray. That was the orange blue relationship. And then I included the color wheels so we'd have a point of reference, you know. I'd like to be able to move that, but apparently I can't. But there's enough to indicate here why these colors are arranged as they are arranged. And here I think I can make this bigger. I think I can do that. And here I can make this bigger. I don't think it's possible to, yeah, I can do that. I can put it in the center. And here, this bigger as well. Okay. And this, I think maybe we have sufficient to guide us, to orient us in a visual manner so that we it's not just words. We have something to fit something else. Are there complementary tones, which are the opposite? Now, if I was to look at tones, just briefly, there is a blue tone and a yellow tone, let us say. And the blue tone might sound the note G, and the yellow tone, the note E. Da, 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 which is third. And if we look at red, blue, and yellow, what do we get? I mean, we can turn all of this into music if we want to, you know. We can say red is C, blue is, well, we can do it this way. That would be a major chord of red, yellow, blue. If I wanted to go red, green, blue, it would be dum dum da dum 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 da da dee dum bum. So those are fairly, harmonious, but I could get clashing tones also and dissonances if I worked at it. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, right? Okay. Now, blue and indigo, being cosmically related, are not simply analogous, may be used interchangeably for purposes of blinding. Being cosmically related. Well, we have blue logos, but we understand that his blue is really indigo and he is a cosmic being. So is that cosmic relationship, perhaps? He says, though, let me illustrate and we'll see what he, I'm sorry, is proposing. The lords of the flame in their work in connection with this planet may be spoken of in terms of 4 colors. So think of it, there's one subject, the lords of the flame, but 4 possible colors by means of which we refer to them. And let's see how he does this. Because if he gives us the sufficient hints, then we may be able to do it ourselves. Indigo, as they are on the line of the bodhisattva, hearts of fiery love, connected with the love or wisdom ray, because they've been trained on the cosmic Christ, which is Sirius. And maybe that tells us something, I don't know, about the monadic ray of those who pursue that Syrian path, even though the bulk of humanity are said to pursue it, perhaps. So indigo, as they are on the line of the wisdom, love or wisdom ray. Well, they're certainly the middle principle, and they represent the building of the heart center of the monad. So now that I've learned how to do this, I can actually get a color without eliminating the print. Okay. The Lord of the world is a direct reflection of the second aspect. Well, whoops, that's not it. So he is the highest example of the teaching ray on our planet and is the greatest savior and the great sacrifice and the of Venusian love. I think I've gone over in one of my discussions some of the many names of Sanat Kumara. Did I come up with 41 names? I'm sure there are more. as we try to, approximate what the Great Lord is. Okay, now, why, okay, this is an A, and I have to make sure that, yeah, double A. I don't want double A, I just want A. And how big do I want it to be? 24, roughly. These little mechanics take up a bit of time. Sorry about that. All right. Blue, because of its alliance with indigo, indigo is and its relationship to the auric egg. Just as the solar logos is spoken of as the blue logos, literally indigo, so the color of the perfected man and of the auric envelope through which he manifests will be predominantly blue. And the soul aspect is predominantly blue. So blue and indigo are allied, and the auric egg this could involve the monad is found on the second subplane, so or the second solar plane or second systemic plane of the cosmic physical plane, and so it has a connection or resonance with or numerical identicality with the second ray or the blue ray. But here is, the one big hint about how blue our logos may really be. It's an indigo logos, basically. So the color of the perfected man, remembering that the soul, the soul ray of the human race is basically the second. We don't know what the monadic ray is, but man proceeds through the method of destruction, whereas the devas proceed through building. So it may be that monadically, man is one, and in terms of his eventual soul nature, is two. It may be that. And then the devas and man meet on the two. Can it be that monadically the great feminine kingdom is a two, in terms of its soul is a three? Anyway, I remember the, kind of like the 1, 2, 3. I made a little map of that at one point. So blue and indigo are both blues. And does the entire auric egg involve the monad? Okay, so is the auric egg here discussed involving or only the soul? It would seem to me it would have to involve the monad as well. And it may be that, the causal body egoic lotus is the heart center of the monad, But from another perspective, the etheric heart center of the solar logos, maybe the planetary logos too, but anyway, found on the second subplane of the cosmic etheric plane. So both of those locations or placements of the point of tension are involved with two, the number two. When it comes to the egoic lotus causal body, it's 2 and 5, because it's on the fifth systemic plane and it carries the heart center vibration of love, hearts of fiery love, love wisdom. When we talk about the monad and its two, the numbers are 2 and 1 or 1 and 2, because it is the highest aspect of man, and yet it's on the second systemic subplane, which connects it with the 2. So we learned that we can navigate according to numerical resonance, and sometimes we can call it numerical identicality. Now, what I've done here is I've given us a kind of blue, and then later contrasted the blue with the indigo. Blue, because of its, and now I'm going to alliance with indigo, and I'm going to make that indigo in its nature so we can point out the difference. And what are we doing? It never hurts to remind ourselves of what we are doing. The Lords of the Flame. How do we speak of the Lords of the Flame and their color? How do we know we're referencing the Lords of the Flame? Through color. And why are these colors appropriate? For the reasons that Master DK is giving us at this point. And, well, we just do not have an orange. So let's see what it says. Here is orange, which is the complementary to blue and which has direct relation with man as an intelligence, because orange in general, rules the entire mental plane. So I think I can make this color appear in the following way, even though not at highlight. I can make it appear this way, which is the complementary of the blue. And we've seen from our color wheels some of the various ways of complementing depending on the shade of blue, or the shade of orange will determine the shade of blue and vice versa. So, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. Yeah, we'll go back here to take a look. About orange and blue. Yeah, well, there we have it, in the simplified color wheel. Orange and blue. And we probably have it here as well. Here's orange and here is a blue. This looks a bit more authentic, and it seems to have a smoother gradation. We're not just cutting one color off from another. Let's see what else we have here. Looking at orange and blue. Here we don't seem to have an orange, but above we will. Orange and blue, we looked at that. And make this a little bit bigger. You can always refer back, and here's orange and blue, primary, secondary, or maybe we'll call it complementary. Primary, secondary, yellow and violet, but it's a pigment primary. And primary and its complement green. Green is not considered, at least in pigment, a primary. It's a secondary. And then we have some tertiary relationships as well. Notice quite a, isn't it? But it has a tinge of orange in it. Yeah. And here's a rich green with quite a fairly tertiary orange. And here's something darker yet. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. I think here we see the example of a dark color with a light complementary, relatively. The deeper, well, let's see. Here is an orange with a darker orange with a light blue, and a light darker blue, and a still lighter orange with a still deeper blue. And here red and green are considered complementaries or secondaries is another way of referring to it. Well, there seem to be some differences. We do have primaries, secondaries, and in one map, tertiaries as well. As we progress through the scale, according to Blavatsky, the yellow note is followed by the green note. Now, here is the yellow note, and it is, in terms of, well, it says a secondary color here. Yes, here it is. But there are transitional colors, a lighter green, which might connect with maybe, could it be the note F? Maybe so. And then we get the lighter violet magenta opposite it. But really, we cannot keep going in that way, because what these colors represent in terms of music seem to fall in the cracks on the piano, and they're not really whole tones or even half tones. They are semitones. So maybe here, this very dark green represents the F sharp, and this would be a very discordant relationship. And maybe when we deal with tertiary colors, we have possibly discordant relationships. Well, I'm not quite ready to, make a complete theory out of that. But suffice it to say, there are many ways of dividing the octave. You can divide by 5, you can divide by 7, you can divide by 12, you can divide by 28, all kinds of ways to do that. And maybe you can divide colors similarly on some of these more complex color wheels. All right. I'd like to go a little faster. And maybe there's a way to do that. There is. So, how do you speak of the Lords of the Flame? This is an example. You can talk about them in terms of indigo. You can talk about them in terms of blue, and blue and indigo are both blues. And there is, which is the type of orange which is most related to the solar angels? There's a type of orange related to a normal blue, and maybe a lighter type of orange related to the indigo. And I wonder if we can, kind of hate to go back, but there we see some variation. We see a darker blue with a lighter orange, and we see a lighter blue with a darker orange. And here, maybe we see the darker, well, we see, it's hard to pick out what is darker in terms of the orange, but there's a shading from red into orange. And there's a lighter blue, maybe opposing the darker orange. I think none of these color wheels is really perfect for our purposes. Here something is not working exactly correctly because the complement of violet is yellow. But here it looks like the opposition is with the deeper blue, and that is not what we find in all the color wheels. All right, now you can speak of them in terms of orange, which is the complementary to blue, and which has a direct connection with orange as an intelligence. Because we also want to say that orange is the color of the fifth ray. So he, man, or he, the solar angel, man. He, man, is the custodian of the fifth principle of Manus in its relation to the totality of the personality. From a certain point of view, we might look at the lower mind as orange and the higher mind as being yellow-orange, Buddhi as being yellow, and Atma as being green. Now, this is interesting because many of the color and violet as complements, but not this. So I'm going to make this a little bigger and say that yellow is the complement of indigo, and also the color of Buddhi. He doesn't, even though the mental aura carries a lot of yellow in it around the head, at least according to Leadbeater, we find that indigo and yellow go together. And that, I'm thinking about the colors of Sweden, the yellow and the blue. And, I'm thinking about the university that I was attending. Its colors were the yellow and the blue. Living here in a country called Finland, its colors are the blue and the white. So there's some differences of opinion here. DK says that indigo and yellow are complements. Yellow is, for man, the color of Buddhi. And on the direct line of the second aspect, why? Why? Because ray 4 is denoted by yellow, and ray 4 is on a direct line from the ray 2 aspect. So 2 and 4 are complementary, or not complementary, harmonious, let's say. But is yellow the complement of indigo? Well, here it is. It seems, if we can call that indigo. It's not deep enough for indigo, but it's something. Here again is a deep blue, deepish, with yellow as the opposite. But here, yellow is a complement of violet, and the blue is related to orange. But that's not really an indigo blue, is it? We don't have an indigo blue in that particular wheel, and we don't. Can we find it in this wheel? Well, maybe that's the darkest blue we get, and yellow is somehow involved. But here we have a blue, it's not indigo, but very definitely yellow is seen as the complement of violet. So there are differing opinions, and DK is offering one, which is, I suppose, very factual, I suspect. And on a few of the color wheels, we do see indigo and yellow working together. But on most of them, we don't. We see something different. We see violet in relation to the yellow. But here, let's see. No, on this one too, I'm going to make it quite, I thought I would make it quite big. And again, primary and complementary. Opposite the blue is the orange, and opposite the purple is the yellow. So what is being hidden here? What is being hidden? There's not a perfect clarity. Not by any means, not yet. But we have enough hints to keep us going. And at least we can sort out what is being said to a degree. So yellow being the complement of indigo. That's how DK sees it. And yet hardly any color wheels show that. Well, we'll just have to live with it. And I wonder if I could do it that way. There, that would set up the complementary look, the indigo background and the yellow text. And it's also the color of booty, but if we look at the lead beater diagrams, as I said, around the head and representing possibly relatively high mentality, the color yellow can be found. Now, yellow is related to ray 5, and ray 5 is related to the brain. And what we saw is that this yellow was considered an esoteric color. But in a way, it is rather exoteric if it's related to the brain. So this is the place for that. Did you say the subject was a little bit complex? I think so. Esoterically, yellow. And esoterically for ray 4, also yellow. Is it a misprint? Should that be exoteric yellow? Well, what usually comes first? The exoteric color comes first. So we must question whether we're dealing here with a misprint, because esoterically for ray 4, yellow is the color. And again, esoterically for ray 5, yellow is the color. Is it a misprint? I guess we'd have to go to the book itself to figure that out. And even then, it can be a mistake, as there are, mistakes in the book. Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about solar angels in terms of indigo, blue, orange, and yellow. Okay. We are speaking of solar angels in terms of indigo, blue, orange, and yellow. Now, the solar angels are primarily, they have their own rays, I guess, but they have, generically, they are of the second ray and the fifth ray. They carry the love and wisdom aspect and onto the mental plane. Love and wisdom being the indigo, and the mental plane being the orange. The throat center, however, connecting with the mental plane, is silvery blue. So maybe that is the final objective, but the silvery quality tells you of ray 3, and gold more of, well, either ray 2 or ray 1, but since it's so sun-like, it has a strong ray 2 connotation. And then what shall be the metal to put in the ray 1 position? It could be gold. Can it be platinum? That is an elemental metal. So it's quite a tangle. And the Tibetan hints at things which no book given out exoterically can establish with certainty. All right. Whoop. There I go again, don't I? So he says, I give the above illustration to demonstrate to you the great complexity involved by the use of blinds, yet also to show you that for those who have the seeing eye, is that the single eye, even the choice of these blinds is not arbitrary, but subject to rule and law. I guess we can recognize when a blind is being used, but can we recognize why it is being used in that particular context? Okay, the choice of blinds is not arbitrary, but subject to rule and even to law, which is greater than rule. And we need to know why a particular blind is being used in a particular context. There are many avenues by which we can reach a certain point of destiny. We just have to know what avenue we're on, and in this case, what is the color of the avenue that legitimizes reaching that point via that color. It is therefore obvious to you why it is so often emphasized that in dealing with esoteric matters, lower manus helps not. Well, I think about astrology in its ordinary, exoteric, and its esoteric aspects, to divine some of the higher principles, regarding esoteric astrology. Maybe the lower manus doesn't help, but it can help with regard to personality astrology and the astrology of things more concrete. Anyway, lower manus is not helping here particularly. Only he who has the higher vision in process of development can hope to attain any measure of accurate discrimination. This higher vision may be related to the single eye. Just as the green of the activity of nature forms the basis of the love aspect, which is blue, and I can't not say that it's only indigo blue, I mean, it's just blue in general, or the indigo vibration of this love system, so it will be found upon, so will it be found upon the mental plane. What we say as the complement of orange, which rules the mental plane in its entirety. But with the indigo more likely to be found on the higher mental plane, where that second aspect structure that we call the egoic lotus or causal body is positioned. even if positioned on the third sublevel, as it is for average man, still it is positioned on the higher mental plane. More may not be said, but food for thought lies here. You can say that again, and, we can say, yes, and you can read that again. Orange also holds the secret for the sons of mind, and in the study of flame, which even exoterically blends all the colors, comes illumination. So generally, I'm trying to use my memory now, the color of flame is yellow, orange, and blue. And I think we see, that blue would be the interior of the flame. I wonder how I would do if I consulted our friend Google and a picture. Sorry, I know you don't see this yet. Picture of a burning flame. Images of burning flames. Let's see if anything here. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? You don't exactly see the Bunsen burner at work, do you? But there is where you would see the core of blue. Okay. Mostly orange, some yellow. And if this shows the structure of flame, then the sort of white yellow is more interior than the orange red. Burning flame, stock photos. Let's see about here. Well, here we see, I guess it depends on what's burning. We see a largely blue flame. Here we see, what do we see? These images are not exactly made for the closest study. But let's just see if we can Bunsen burner flame. Well, I think what I'll do is do it this way. Images of burning flames, images of Bunsen burner flames. Okay. Here it's almost all blue. Maybe that has to do with greater heat. The blue stars, the bluish whites are the hottest. Here we have kind of a mixture of orange and yellow, but we have to look at the center. And here, Bunsen burner flame images. I'm looking for a kind of a flame. Well, this is interesting. The indigo is below the orange. This is what I'm looking for. Notice how the interior of the flame is the blue, followed by some kind of mixture of orange and yellow. All right. Sometimes we just have to look at the natural factor, and it will reveal to us. It always seems that the blue is below the orange. It does seem that to be the case. And here are Bunsen burner images. Many of us has taken the lab, you know. We're familiar here. Notice how the deeper blue in this one is found still more centralized. But maybe it's so hot there just is no orange or yellow. Anyway, orange and yellow seem to be external. And the blues more the internal and more easily connected with esoterics. All right. Okay. Now, going back. In studying this question of color and sound in meditation, how should we best divide our vast subject? I think maybe this is a good place for us to call this particular program to a halt. We are on page, well, we're on a page somewhere here. 208. And let's see if I can find 209. Yeah, so we're on page 208. And I think we began on 203. So let's try that. Letter 6, form and meditation. And here we are, program 42, and one more. Oh, maybe more than one more. Yeah, right there. So basically, we're going from 203 to 208. And I think, you know, we have to be wise and try to find the place where it is convenient to stop. We've explored the foundation of color. We've looked at color and the metals, color and the rays. We've looked at methods of blinding using color. We've looked at colors by means of which the solar angels can be referred to. We've looked particularly at blue and indigo and yellow and orange, and why any one of those could refer to the solar angels. We've looked at color wheels. And we've seen some general tendencies, but also some discrepancies. And now we're going to come to a section about how to study this vast subject. So this was the end then of program 43, and it's taken us to page 208, and we'll begin, hopefully, continuing program 44 and maybe begin with 208, if possible. Yeah, and on the 25th of October, that is our hope to continue here. But I think I'll be a little sharper if we take a little break. So let's do that. This program probably being in the neighborhood of 2-something hours, or maybe almost 3 or a bit more. We need the foundation. We're studying sound, we're studying color, and then we're studying the relationship between them, and we're studying the way that color, that sound produces color. I think we're also studying or have in the back of our mind the way vibration produces sound. And in the fourfold sequence in cosmic fire, the factor of light follows upon that of vibration. So basically, the way of looking at this is that vibration relates to the logoic plane, light to the monadic plane, sound to the atmic plane, although it has a relationship to the akasha, which is the second plane, and color to the buddhic plane. Color with its many differentiations, but a basic harmony in those differentiations. Okay, friends, so I'll get this to you, and we'll, continue. Let's see how it's, well, it's a long chapter. He says many things, but we cannot help but be enriched by what is said. And the enumeration of the colors puts them squarely in the category of spiritual numerals. So we can determine the value of things by their numerosity, by their numeral. And the use of color and sound is going to tell us all about our advancement in the realm of quality. And we might call that soul advancement. The soul is, we're told, the quality of life. It's just, if we could take the time and had the insight, there is a tremendous foundation being prepared here for us. And it will take some number of programs to find ourselves working through this material. There's a lot that's coming up, you know. By comparison, maybe the work regarding the esoteric schools is relatively easy, but we have another section before we get to that. All right. So I think this will do for now. There we go. All right, that's where we are. Program number 44, if I'm correct. Otherwise, the communications group will correct me. And we'll get this to you in a clear manner. So I'll be back. Lots of love, many blessings from all of us, and we'll talk to you soon.